The Courage to Begin Again, a mother's story of trials, troubles, and triumphs by Reatu Temete, all rights reserved. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. J.K. Rowling. To my great father, your strength, wisdom, and unwavering faith have been the foundation of my courage. This book is a tribute to your love and the timeless lessons that continue to guide my journey. The mother who rose again. From Togo's sun to Sweden's snow, I walk where few will choose to go. Through trials, deep and nights of ache, I learned what only love can make. 5 little hurts I heard so near, their laughter fought my doubt and fear. Through weary days and sleepless cries, I found my strength in tired eyes. The world grew heavy, yet I stayed. Through every storm, my faith was made. Each tear became a seed of grace. Each wound, a lifetime can't erase. Now here I stand, reborn, refined, a mother shaped by heart and mind. For from the dust, new dreams take part. Each break rebirths a braver heart. Introduction. I was born and raised in Togo, and I came to Sweden in my early 20s. I didn't know then that the next 16 years of my life abroad would become a journey of trials, troubles, and triumphs. I have been through a lot, seen a lot, and learned even more. Life didn't unfold the way I imagined it would, but perhaps it unfolded the way it needed to. Every story of strength begins with a moment of breaking. Mine began with quiet tears and unanswered questions. There were days when the weight of responsibility felt too heavy to carry, and nights when I longed for peace that seemed so far away. I have walked through seasons of loss, betrayal, abuse, and loneliness. I have known the sting of disappointment, the ache of survivor, and the silence of starting over again when the world had gone quiet. Yet, through it all, I discovered something extraordinary, that the human spirit, though tender, is unbreakable when fueled by purpose. This book is not simply about pain, it is about transformation. It is about finding courage in the middle of chaos and learning to stand again after falling apart. Each chapter holds a piece of my journey, the breaking point that nearly crushed me, the night that tested my faith in myself, and the moment that whispered, "You can rise again." In the breaking points, I share the times when exhaustion and disappointment brought me to my knees, and how those very moments became the soil for growth. In the woman who refused to break, you will meet the part of me that kept fighting, even when strength seemed to vanish. You will walk with me through how I carried 5 lives on my shoulders. I share how motherhood became both my learning cross and my greatest crown. You will see how abuse taught me the painful but liberating truth of self worth, and how work became more than survivor. It became a path back to dignity and self discovery. In the gift of friendship, you will find a quiet beauty of people who showed up and stay, even when the world fall apart. In Home Sweet Home, I return to my roots, to the lessons that shaped me, the values that grounded me, and the love that healed me. Through the strength in our struggles, you will learn, as I did, that what feels like punishment often becomes preparation for upliftment. And in triumphing over trials and troubles, I celebrate not a loud victory, but a peaceful one. The kind that comes when you've walked through the fire and discovered you can still shine. My story is not just about survival, it is about renewal. It is about discovering that beginnings often come disguised as endings, and that brokenness that become the birthplace of strength. Life has taught me that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks in quiet assurance, reminding you that there is still light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe you too have felt like life knocked the wind out of you. Maybe you've stood at a crossroads, wondering if you'll ever find your way back. If so, this book is for you. I wrote it as a reminder that no matter how dark things seem, there is always light waiting to break through. So I invite you to walk with me through the valleys and the victories as you turn the pages of this book. Let my story remind you of your own strength, your own resilience, and your own power to rebuild. Because no matter how many times life bring you to your knees, you can still stand again, start again, and win again. With love, Riatu Temete, Stockholm, Sweden. Chapter 1. The Breaking Point. The work breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places. Ernest Hemingway. In June 2016, my two boys and I were traveling to Togo. It was supposed to be a normal trip. Their school session had just ended, and I had managed to get a break from work. Bags were packed, tickets ready, and for once, everything seemed in order. That morning we were at the airport early for our 6:30 flight. The boys were excited. I remember thinking this will be good for us. A chance to breathe again from all the stress I had gone through in the past months. When we boarded the plane to Brussels, all seemed fine. I even felt a little relieved settled in. But just an hour into the flight, everything changed. The headache began suddenly, sharp, stabbing, unrelenting. At first, I thought it was one of those little headaches that come and go, but this one was different. It spread through my head like fire, piercing every nerve until it felt as though someone was driving needles into my skull. I tried to hold it in. I didn't want to make a scene, but the pain became unbearable. I pressed the call button, hoping for help, but no one came quickly enough. And then something inside me broke. I screamed. The passengers turned. My balls stared, wide eyed, terrified. The flight attendants rushed toward me, their voices calm, but their faces worried. They scrambled for what to do. They pressed the warm towel against my head, whispered about pressure changes, about stress, about anything that could explain what was happening. But nothing could explain the kind of pain I was in. 30 minutes before landing in Brussels, it grew worse, much worse. I thought I might die right there, mid-air, with my children watching. By the time we landed, I was rushed into an ambulance. Doctors checked my vitals, blood pressure, heart rate, temperature. Everything looked fine. Yet, inside, I was drowning. They gave me medication to calm the pain, told me it would be okay. But deep down, I knew something was not okay. We had a 2 hour transit time, and myself and my kids were the last to board the second flight. I even thought we would not be able to make it, but thank goodness we did. So we rushed inside the plane, hoping things get better as we embark on the next journey. As we were in the flight heading to Togo, I was weak, barely able to focus, but determined to get there. A kind man seated nearby noticed my struggle and helped my boys with food, drinks, and comfort. I was too drained to care for them myself. His kindness felt like a miracle in the middle of my storm. As we descended toward Ghana, the pain returned, lighter than before but sharp enough to remind me it was still there. I clutched the medication they had given me and whispered a prayer that it would hold me together until we arrived. By the time we reached Togo late that night, I was completely exhausted. My family was waiting at the airport, their faces filled with both relief and concern. My sister asked what had happened, and I tried to explain. Even as the words left my mouth, I could hardly believe it myself. But here's the truth, it wasn't just about a sudden headache on a plane. For months before that trip, I had been living under constant strain. Every day began at 4 a.m. I would wake, pray quickly, shower, then wake the boys by 5. I dressed them, made food, and by 6 we were out the door, catching trains and buses to their schools before I finally made it to work. Evenings wearing lighter. I picked them up, cooked, helped with homework, birthed them, put them to bed, then prepare for the next day. It was endless, relentless, and I was doing it all alone. This burden had left me bruised in ways I couldn't put into words. Depression had visited my mind like an unwanted guest. Some days I was barely functioning, but I kept pushing because my children needed me and there was no one else to step in. Stress had become my constant companion, loneliness too, and that flight simply revealed what my body had been carrying all along. I knew the breaking point had come, breaking before healing. When we finally got home, I was still not myself. My mother took one look at me and knew something deeper was wrong. She didn't panic. Instead, she did what our ancestors had always done. She reached for the herbs, our own traditional medicine. She gathered roots and leaves of some medicinal plants, carefully mixing and preparing them. Some were made for teas for me to drink. Some were for bathing, for cleansing, for restoring strength. Day by day, I followed her instructions, and slowly my body began to recover. But as I lay there, watching my family rally around me, one thought would not leave my mind: how quickly life can change. One moment I was just another mother traveling with her children. The next I was screaming on the plane, convinced my life was slipping away. In fact, I was thinking inside the plane that the drama I created would be subject topic that many passengers would discuss with their families when they get back home. I was absolutely surprised myself, going through a mixture of unease and uncontrolled moments. But that's what breaking points do. They strip life down to the bare essentials. In those moments, nothing matters except relief, survival, breath. Health becomes priceless. Strength becomes sacred. And maybe you've been there too. Maybe not on a plane, but in your own valley. Maybe in a financial crisis. Maybe in the middle of a broken marriage. Maybe under the weight of bills, disappointment, or betrayals. Whatever it is, you know the feeling. The moment where everything narrows to one question: how do I make it out of this alive? Breaking points change us. They remind of what life could throw at us and how we could handle them. They teach us that even when we feel shattered, there's still hope of being pieced back again together. Yes, my mother's herbs worked and my body healed, but my breaking point left me changed. Because once you cross that line, you can't go back to who you were. You can only move forward. And forward for me meant facing trials that would test more than just my body. They would test my faith, my heart, and my will to begin again. Breaking points are turning points. There comes a moment in every story where the things that we once thought were secure begin to unravel. Life has its own way of testing our strength, sometimes through illness, sometimes other times through heartbreak, betrayal, or the quiet exhaustion of carrying too much for too long. We do our best to hold it all together, piercing ourselves up with hope and routine until one day the mask cracks, the strength fades, the tears we've been holding back finally find their way out, and we whisper to ourselves, I can't carry this anymore. In that moment, it feels like everything is falling apart. But what we often don't realize is that this is where courage begins, in the honest acknowledgement of our limits. When I think back to those days before the flight, I remember the heaviness I carried in silence. So many women know this weight. The silent tears in the shower, the tired smile that hides the ache, the relentless need to make sure everyone else is okay, even when your own soul is weary. We tell ourselves, I'll be fine. I just need to push through until one day we realize we are not fine. Breaking points are not signs of weakness, they are signals from the soul. They whisper, stop, breathe. Something needs to change. But instead of listening, we often push harder, striving, struggling, surviving. And yet, when the breaking finally comes, it brings with a strange kind of grace, the grace to surrender. Because sometimes what feels like the end is really the beginning. The moment we stop pretending to be strong for everyone else becomes the moment we start to truly heal. And in that sacred pause, because the breaking and the rebuilding, we find the courage to rise, not as what we were, but as what we are meant to become. Courage in the storm. Courage isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like standing tall in the middle of the storm. Sometimes it's quiet and unseen, in the gentle strength that helps you take one small step when everything inside you feels tired. It's choosing to breathe, to rest, to heal. Marianne Radmacher once wrote, "Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is a quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow." I found that to be true. When I reached my breaking point, I didn't walk away suddenly stronger or healed. Healing came slowly through my mother's tender care, through simple remedies, and through collective prayers. More so, it came through a change in the way I saw things. I began to understand that my breaking point wasn't the end, it was an invitation to be strong again. Have you ever seen a clay jar that's cracked under it? At first, those cracks seem like signs of damage, but in the Japanese art of kintsugi, the cracks are filled with gold, making the vessel even more beautiful than before. That's what our broken places can become, marks of beauty, grace, and strength. Our cracks don't mean we are ruined, they mean we have lived, we have endured, and we have been shaped by something greater. Through them, light finds its way in. Kindness, too, has a quiet power. Sometimes it appears when we least expect it. A comforting word, a message from a friend, a stranger's gentle smile. These small moments are not small at all. They are reminders that we are not alone, that God often sends help in the most unexpected ways. Dear friend, your breaking point is not your final chapter. It can be the place where your courage begins to bloom. Your moment of weakness is not the end. You can rise again, you can breathe again, you can live again. Closing thoughts. When was the last time you faced a breaking point in your life? What happened and how did it make you feel in that moment? Second, what hidden weight have you been carrying? Stress, loneliness, expectations that could be quietly draining your strength. 3. Looking back, can you see any moment of unexpected help or kindness, even in the middle of your breaking point? Chapter 2. The woman who refused to break. She stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her away, she adjusted her sails. Elizabeth Edwards. I'm a girl who came from a very humble background. My earliest memories are marked not by abundance, but by struggle. We had very little, truly very little, a quantity that is not just enough to go around. My father was a school teacher. My mother, at least in the early days, was a stay at home mother. They did what they could, but their means were small. Life was challenging. I had brothers and sisters, and together we managed the little we had. We were happy in spirit, but the reality was undeniable. There were many days when we had nothing to eat. I will never forget one night in particular. There was no food in the house. My mother, refusing to let us go to bed hopeless, put a pot of water on the fire and told us she was cooking. My siblings and I sat waiting, believing dinner was on the way. But the truth was, there was nothing in that pot but water. Eventually, we all fell asleep hungry. It's one of the saddest memories of my childhood, a picture of the level of life we endured. And yet, even in that despair, there was a miracle. The very next morning, as I was stepping out of the house, someone crossed my path. I greeted the person politely, and to my shock, they handed me some money. That unexpected gift became the meal that carried my siblings and me through school that day. It was as though God Himself had remembered us in our hunger, and I believed He did. I remember we lived in one small room, my mother, my siblings, and I, sleeping together on the floor. Life was cramped, uncomfortable, and yet it was all I knew. School was another challenge. We walked more than 30 minutes each way every day. By the time we returned home for lunch, much of our energy had already been drained. There was rarely money for food at school, so we would hurriedly back, eat whatever little we could find, and then walk the long road again. When my mother traveled to our village to work on our family's farm, trying desperately to supplement my father's meager teacher's salary, we children had to find ways to fend for ourselves. I remember pounding dry okra into powder for a woman in the neighborhood just to earn a few coins. I did it so often that the pounding left scars on my palms, scars that remained with me to this day. Other times, we went to the farm to weed or harvest crops. The work was hard, especially for children, but we knew if we wanted to earn more, we had to do more. We hawked food items, we took odd jobs, anything to survive. Even though my father was trying his best to fend for his family, he was a gentleman. He was known for his quiet spirit and love for people. He hated conflict, he believed in avoiding trouble wherever possible, always seeking peace, always trying to reconcile others in the community. Even with his small means, he was generous. That was the kind of man he was. My mother, on the other hand, was a picture of sacrifice. She did everything she could to feed us, clothe us, and protect us, even when the cupboards were empty and the work was exhausting. I now understand the strength it took for her to put that pot of water on the fire, not as deception, but as a desperate act of hope to calm our young hearts. Learning hard work early. From a young age, I became known as a hardworking one. Every errand somehow found its way to me. Every chore had my name written on it. I was the one people could rely on, always available, always willing, always ready to help. I moved from one task to another, often before being asked, finding quiet joy in being useful. Whether it was caring for younger relatives, supporting my grandmother in an old age, or taking on responsibilities far beyond what a child could carry. I learned early what it meant to give off myself fully. At the time, I didn't think much of it. It was simply life, a rhythm I had grown accustomed to. But looking back now, I see how deeply those years shaped me. They taught me endurance, resilience, and the quiet strength that comes from showing up even when no one else noticed. Those same lessons became the foundation upon which I stood as a mother, guiding through sleepless nights, seasons of scarcity, and moments of uncertainty. The discipline and determination that once made me the helpful child became the very tools that sustained me when life tested my patience and faith. What I once thought was just hard work became a kind of training, a preparation for the life that awaited me. Every chore, every errand, every weary step was building something within me. It was as though life was teaching me long before I understood it. That diligence is rarely wasted. And indeed, it was through that same diligence that opportunities began to unfold, not in grand, sudden ways, but gently, a door here, a small chance there. Each one led to another, and before I knew it, I was walking through paths I had once only dreamt of. Looking back, I realized that perseverance had a quiet way of making room for grace. It was never the easy road, but it was the one that shaped me and ultimately the one that led me forward. Poverty did not break me. Despite everything, hunger, lack, struggle, I was never broken. Deep within, I carried a fierce determination. My life will not always be like this. I didn't know how or when, but I believed things would change. even during the days when I was in primary school. And together with my siblings, we would walk long distance to school. I looked at my classmates whose parents bought them new shoes, new bags, new books. They always had food, new clothes, everything a child could want. But instead of envy, I chose a different mindset. I told myself, one day life will be different, things will get better, we will have more. That mindset became my anchor. It was faith mixed with determination. Because here's the truth: poverty can strip you of possessions, but it cannot strip you off of your vision unless you let it. My struggles have become my strength. My trials have become my triumph. My failures have become my stepping stones. Today, when I reflect on those years, I see that every hardship carried hidden lessons. The hunger taught me empathy. The long walks taught me endurance. The lack of clothes taught me gratitude for every gift I now give. The scars on my palms remind me that suffering can leave marks, but those marks can become symbols of strength. One thing I believe is that challenges are not sent to destroy us, but to prepare us. They are builders, not breakers. There's a quote from Maya Angelou I love. It says, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeat so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, how you can still come out of it." Exactly the point. Even though we encounter many defeats, we must not allow them to defeat us. We must be strong mentally to understand that though the defeats come with negative baggage to push us down and crush us, they might be necessary to strengthen us. They might be useful for letting us understand who we are and what we can rise from, how powerful we are on the inside, and the tenacity and resilience we can build on the inside. People who go to the gym every day and build muscles understand that muscles are not built under pleasure, but pressure. A person who will have big biceps and triceps will carry heavy load every day and be exercising the muscles. It is a combination of strain and pain that guarantees muscle growth and strength. A strong muscle is built through long efforts and endurance. The same is true for life. It is with pain and effort that we build something of value and excellence. Dear friend, if you are reading this and you feel crushed under poverty, setback, or disappointment, let my story remind you it is not the end. It is not too late to start again. It is not too late to believe again. It is not too late to build again. Yes, life may push you to the ground, but even from the ground, seed grow. From the ground, a house is built. Your trials today may be the soil from which your triumph will rise tomorrow. So, keep your mindset alive, keep your faith alive, believe that one day your story will change. Closing thoughts. What painful moment in your life once felt like it would break you, but in hindsight became part of your strength? 2. Are there scars, visible or invisible, that you've seen only as shame, but could now begin to see as symbols of survival or strength? 3. What vision for your life can you hold on to even when your current circumstances seem to contradict it? Chapter 3. Carrying 5 lives on my shoulders. We are not meant to carry burdens alone, but when we must, we discover how much strength we truly have. Paulo Cielo. From a very young age, I loved carrying babies. I remember taking care of my aunt's children when they were little. I did everything a mother would do, except breastfeeding, of course. Though I wasn't their biological mother, I was closer to them than anyone else. I knew them like the lines on my palm. Their cries and their laughter, their needs, their moods, and their tiny frustrations. Even as a girl, I was already living like a mother. I carried that responsibility with joy, and deep down, I knew one day all those experiences would mean something. Because I was hardworking, people around me trusted me deeply. They believed where they believed that there was nothing I couldn't do. Sometimes that scared me. I didn't want to be the one everyone depends on completely. Though I was always loved to help, I'd always loved to help. I just didn't want to carry the weight of being someone's only hope. Caring for my aunt's children helped me mature quickly. I learned the rhythm of caring for little ones, their feeding, their health, their endless energy. Even before becoming a mother, I had already gained many of the instincts and skills of one. So when I eventually had my own children, I wasn't stepping into unknown waters. I had a bit of background experience to lean on. My first pregnancy came as both a surprise and a blessing. I did everything right, attended antenatal appointments, health well, and took enough rest. Around that time, I had also registered for the Swedish language course for immigrants, which I later paused because of the pregnancy. When my time came, labor was long and painful, as is often the case with first births. I remember thinking the baby wouldn't be big since I'm not that plump, but when he arrived, he was a strong big boy. No wonder I had been constantly hungry during that pregnancy. I was never the type that eats much, but that time I craved food like never before. It all made sense when he was born. He had been growing strong, building his little muscles and bones. He came out healthy, and we were all so grateful. My second child came a little over a year later, a boy as well. He wasn't as big as the first, but just as healthy. This time, everything felt smoother, labor was shorter, and my confidence had grown. All the things I had learned from caring for my aunt children and from my first experience came together beautifully. An unforgettable birth. My third baby came some years later, and that birth was unforgettable. It reminded me of my first labor pains, but this time the experience was different, miraculous even. I went into labor early in the morning around 8 a.m. and didn't deliver until 3 a.m. the next day. I had been waiting all day thinking the baby would come sooner. The hospital told me to call in case of any emergency. Late that night, I decided to shower before resting. I suddenly felt the urge to push. Before I knew it, the amniotic sac broke and the baby began to arrive. Right there on the bathroom floor, everything happened so fast that by the time the ambulance arrived, the baby was already born. Along with the placenta, I sat on the floor holding my baby close to my chest. It was both terrifying and divine. The ambulance took us to the hospital and thankfully everything was fine. I breastfed him for a year as I did with all my children. I know in Africa, mothers often breastfeed for 2 years or more, but here in abroad, it can be challenging to balance everything. Still, I made sure to give my best. My fourth child was a girl, and her pregnancy was smooth and peaceful. But her due date came and passed. I wondered why she was taking her time. I laughed to myself, thinking how women always take their time when doing things. Perhaps she was simply enjoying the warmth of my womb a little longer. Eventually, she decided to come, also at home. I had gone to the hospital earlier that day, but since labor wasn't progressing, they sent me home. By the time I arrived, I felt tired and wanted to rest. But before laying down, I went to the restroom and suddenly the baby started coming. Within moments, I gave birth right there at home. I called the ambulance and they took us to the hospital for care. Everything went well and she grew into a lovely little toddler full of joy and energy. Not long after, I had my fifth child, another girl. Her pregnancy was calm too, even though I was juggling work and home responsibilities. When the time for delivery came, I went to the hospital, but she took her time, just like her sister. I laughed to myself again. Perhaps it's a girl thing. The hospital staff asked if I want to go home, but I refused. I remembered what happened the last time and I told them I would stay until she was born. And I did. After some hours, she arrived safely. We stayed in the hospital for care and checkups before heading home. Looking back, I can say each experience was unique, each child a blessing. Yes, it's not easy raising children. There are sleepless nights, endless chores, and moments of exhaustion, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love my children deeply, and I love seeing them grow into their own unique persons. Motherhood isn't a small task, but every bit of it, the sacrifices, the love, the time, it's worth it. Truly, it is one of the most beautiful jobs life could ever give. The sacrifice of parenting. I know there are moments when the weight of parenting feels almost too heavy to carry. There are times when you're drained, weary, and tempted to just let go, to stop trying so hard. I understand that feeling. Every parent has been there. But I say there is no reason to give up. We must not give up, no matter how demanding the journey gets. The work of raising and shaping children is one of the most challenging, yet most rewarding callings in the world. It stretches you, humbles you, teaches you patience, and fills you with wonder all at once. There are moments when the house is filled with laughter and moments when it echoes with cries. Times when someone is hungry, another is sleepy, and the next one is suddenly not feeling well. There are birds to give, stories to tell, toys to pick, tears to wipe, and little hearts to comfort. Raising children takes time, it takes energy and resources, and sometimes it feels like you're pouring from a cup that is already half empty. There are days my children call me like 100 times in a single minute. Mama, 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 until the name begins to sound like a sweet tone and a tiny alarm at the same time. From morning to night, there's always something to do, something to fix, something to explain. And just when you think you've handled everything, someone suddenly remembers, Mama, I forgot my homework. You see, education adds its own rhythm to the dance of parenting. Early mornings begin with waking sleepyheads, giving birth, preparing breakfast, dressing little bodies, and rushing to school before the bell rings. Then in the afternoon, the cycle begins again. You pick them up, feeding, homework, playtime, bedtime, and in between, there's a whirlwind of chores, errands, work, and a few stolen moments for yourself, if you're lucky. I try to make sure my children sleep early so they don't feel exhausted during the day. Sleep is so vital. I've learned to align their bedtime with the natural sleep cycles. Each cycle lasts about 90 minutes. 5 cycles means 7.5 hours. 6 cycle, 9 hours. When they sleep within those cycles, they wake up refreshed and happy. For us parents, 4 to 5 cycles around 6 to 7.5 hours may be enough, though it depends on how demanding our day is. It's always not easy, especially when you are juggling work, studies, and motherhood, but it makes a world of difference when you manage it well. If you can afford it, it's wise to outsource some tasks rather than do everything alone. You can also redistribute your time, focusing on what really matters most. That's where the Pareto principle becomes useful. The 80-20% rule. It means focusing 80% of your energy on the 20% of activities that give you the greatest results. Sometimes that's bulk cooking instead of daily cooking, doing laundry once or twice a week, cleaning strategically, or simply letting non urgent things wait. When your baby is still small, laundry feels endless. Tiny clothes piling up faster than you can fold them. But as they grow, the pressure eases. You learn to breathe again, to find rhythm in the chaos. Living abroad has taught me many lessons, especially about motherhood. Back home in Africa, help is everywhere: grandmothers, aunties, cousins, neighbors. But abroad, it is a different story. You do almost everything by yourself. People are busy, time is scarce, and help doesn't always come easily. Yet somehow you adapt, you grow stronger, you learn to manage, to plan, to stretch yourself beyond what you once thought possible. And sometimes help finds you in unexpected places. I still remember during one of my antenatal visits, I met a woman who would later become one of my closest friends, Laris. From that day, she became like a sister to me. Our friendship was divine. We laughed together, shared stories, exchanged things, and lifted each other in prayer and love. That is the beauty of friendship. It's family chosen by the heart. Here abroad, where family may be far away, friends like Clarice become your everyday family, the one who shows up when you need them most. It is true, though, who are near are just as important and precious as though people are far away. When emergencies arrive, when they arise, it's your nearby friends who rush in first, not the family who lives across oceans. They see your reality as it unfolds. They hear the unspoken words behind your tired smile. They step in quietly, sometimes without being asked. My children, thankfully, are naturally quiet and gentle. Perhaps they inherited that calmness from me. I've never been one to seek trouble or noise. I love peace and order, and I'm drawn to people who do too. So seeing that same softness reflected in my children warms my heart. Of course, they each have their own personalities, unique and different, but there's something about gentleness that runs through our family like a shared melody. But even gentle children can surprise you. Even the quiet ones can turn your calm day into an unexpected adventure. And that's where my story takes a turn. Because one ordinary day, just when I thought I had mastered the rhythm of motherhood, something happened that reminded me a mother's journey is never predictable. Each day begins a new chapter, a new lesson, and sometimes the greatest teachers are the little ones you're raising. What I learned from my kids as a mother. Motherhood is a classroom without walls, and my children have been my most sincere teachers. There are countless things I've learned, not from books, but from moments, tears, laughter, and the quiet in between of our everyday life. The first thing I learned is love in its purest form. Children love you without filters, without judgment, without conditions. They don't care if you're tired, dressed up, frustrated. They run to you with open arms, just happy that you exist. Their hugs carry healing. Their laughter fills the room with light. Every time they call you mama with that cheerful tone, it reminds you that you are doing something meaningful. You're building lives. You're shaping the future. Motherhood has taught me resilience. Raising children requires strength, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Each child is different, different personalities, moods, and ways of seeing the world. Some days they are friends, others they are in conflict, fighting over toys or space or attention. And in between, you are learning how to balance fairness with firmness, love with discipline, and calmness with correction. Children also teach you new skills you never knew you needed: how to think quickly, how to multitask, how to stay calm when everything seems to be falling apart. They train your patience, shape your emotions, and stretch your ability to love beyond comfort zone. I remember when I used to raise my voice at them whenever they made a mistake. I thought that was the only way to get their attention. But over time, I learned better. I realized that children don't just hear what you say, they feel how you say it. I started learning how to speak to them gently, how to correct them without crushing their spirit, and how to make my words lift them instead of tearing them down. That was a turning point for me. I learned that correction given in love changes hearts faster than anger would ever do. There was a day my son came home from school without his trousers. He had been playing with his friends and somehow forgot them there. When he told me, I was angry. I wanted to scold him right away, but I paused. I told myself that shouting wouldn't bring the trousers back home. So I took a deep breath and said calmly, "It's okay. These things happen. Just remember to bring them home tomorrow." The next day, he came back from school and said, "Mama, I forgot the trousers again. This time, I couldn't help it. I felt my patience wearing thin." I looked at him and said, "Yesterday, I wasn't angry because I thought you would bring them home today. But now that you've forgotten again, I want you to go back to school and bring them home before evening." He stood still for a moment, watched my face carefully, then, with a playful grin, he reached into his bag and pulled out the trousers. I was speechless. He had them the whole time. In that moment, I realized something profound. Children often test our patience. They study our reactions. They want to know if we mean what we say, if we will lose control or stay calm. My son wasn't just being mischievous, he was learning boundaries and at the same time teaching me emotional control. That day, I learned that parenting isn't about perfection, it is about growth. Our children mirror our emotions. They reflect our moods, our strength, and even our weaknesses. They teach us to be better humans, to love without expecting, and to forgive easily. From my kids, I've learned the art of emotional intelligence, to pause before reacting, to listen before judging, and to correct with grace. They've taught me that love isn't about always getting it right, it is about always showing up. Sometimes I look at them sleeping peacefully and think of all the lessons they've taught me: patience, empathy, adaptability, creativity, and even humor. Children have a way of making you see the world through fresh eyes. They remind you to slow down, to notice the little things, to laugh at spilled milk instead of crying over it, to find joy in the messy, noisy, chaotic beauty of family life. And as I continue this journey of motherhood, I realize that the real miracle isn't just that I'm raising them, it's that in their own innocent way, they are raising me too. If you are a mother like me, if you're a mother like me, you will probably realize that motherhood is one of the greatest classrooms in life. And if you're raising children right now, whether toddlers or teens, I would like you to take a moment and reflect. What are they teaching you? Maybe patience through their endless questions, maybe self control through their mistakes, or maybe unconditional love through their pure hearts. If you want something to work on, here are a few suggestions. Number one, listen more deeply. When your child talks, try to hear the emotion behind the words, not just the words themselves. Respond calmly. The next time something goes wrong, take a breath before reacting. You'll be surprised how much clarity that pause gives you. Celebrate small wins. Notice and appreciate their little improvements. It builds confidence and connection. And reflect daily. Ask yourself, what did I learn from my child today? You will start seeing how much they shape you too. Raising children isn't just about shaping them into good people, it is also about allowing them to shape us into a wiser, calmer, and more compassionate version of ourselves. Closing thoughts. What have your children taught you about patience and love that no one else could? 2. How do you balance your own needs with the demands of raising them, and what strategies have worked for you? 3. How do you handle moments of exhaustion or frustration, and what helps you stay committed to guiding and shaping them? Chapter 4. Abuse in a relationship. Abuse is the result of a choice, not a mistake, and it's never the fault of the one being abused. L.R. Nurst. There is something heartbreakingly common in our world today, something that quietly creeps into homes, breaks spirits, and shatters peace. It is a painful reality of abuse in relationships. We live in an age where almost everything is visible. Social media has turned private lives into public windows. Nothing seems hidden anymore. People post the highlights of their joy, but they also at times expose the dark valleys of their pain. Stories of broken relationships, emotional scars, and physical abuse are shared openly. Some cry for help, while others are silent confessions of wounds that never healed. Abuse has become a familiar headline. A man abusing a woman abusing a man. It happens in marriages, friendships, and even among those who claim to love deeply. The reason may differ: anger, insecurity, control, ego, or even cultural difference or influence. But one thing seems to always stand out: one person in the relationship is not willing to seek a solution. It could be the abuser refusing to change or the victim accepting the pain as normal. Either way, the silence becomes the weapon that kills slowly. Abuse in any form is not easy to endure. It is deeply unpleasant and emotionally destructive. The victim often finds themselves in a traumatized state, unable to think clearly or focus on other areas of life. The pain clouds everything, especially for women. The impact can be overwhelming. You lose your strength, your confidence, and sometimes even your own sense of worth. You feel small in your own world, trapped in a life that feels like it no longer belongs to you. That is not to say men don't suffer emotional abuse. They do. But women, by nature, are more emotionally expressive. Their hearts are tender, and when that part of them is wounded, the damage cuts deeply. Emotional abuse can feel like invincible chains. There are no bruises, no bruises, yet the soul bleeds silently. But beyond emotional pain, there are also other forms of abuse: physical, verbal, sexual, psychological, and even financial. Each one leaves a scar that cannot easily fade. Before going deeper, it helps to understand what abuse really means. Abuse is not just the act of eating or shouting, it is an it is any form of behavior meant to control, humiliate, or harm another person. It could be words that tears down self-esteem, manipulation that traps someone into fear, or even neglect that starves the heart of love. Abuse steals the joy from relationships and replaces it with fear, anxiety, and pain. I remember my own story. It is not easy for me to talk about, but I believe healing begins when we speak the truth. I once found myself in a relationship where abuse became the uninvited guest that never left. I was emotionally drained, physically exhausted, and spiritually broken. It was as if the light in my life dimmed little by little until I could no longer recognize who I was. I remember waking up each day feeling like I was living in a cave, surrounded by walls that kept me from joy. We hardly spoke to each other anymore. Everyone in the house just existed. We did our own things, shared the same space but not the same art. I felt completely alone. The laughter that once filled our home had disappeared, replaced by silence and fear. There were moments I asked myself, why am I still here? The answer was never simple. I had children to raise, responsibility to carry, and dreams I once believed we would share. But when abuse enters the relationship, it poisons everything. The home becomes a battlefield instead of a place of rest. You live in constant tension, watching words, watching movements, afraid that anything could trigger anger. And it wasn't just the emotional pain. The physical abuse was even more unbearable. The first time it happened, I was shocked, confused, and ashamed. I told myself it would never happen again. But it did. The apologies came with quavering words and promises, yet the cycle continued. I learned a painful truth. An abuser rarely changes just because they said sorry. If someone hits you once, they are likely to do it again. If they insult you once, they will find another reason to insult you. Abuse repeats itself because it's not just a moment of anger, it is a mindset, a pattern, a way of control. And unless something drastically changes, the story only repeats. Many victims of abuse stay in those relationships for reasons that outsiders can hardly understand. People ask, why don't you just leave? But it's not that simple. Some stay because of cultural expectations, where society teaches that marriage must be endured no matter the pain. Some stay because of religion, believing that living will be sinful or shameful, like you have sinned against God, or others people they stay for the sake of their children, fearing that separation will hurt them. There are also those who stay because they share properties, businesses, or financial ties that make living seem impossible. But no matter the reason, no one deserves to stay in an abusive relationship. Life is too precious to be wasted in pain. It is better to walk away with a broken heart than to stay and lose yourself completely. Healing can only begin when you step away from the source of harm. I know there are those who believe they can change the abuser. They pray, they plead, they hope. I did that too. I told myself it would change. I made excuses. I blamed myself. But the truth is, an abuser will not change unless they acknowledge their behavior and take active steps toward healing. and it rarely happens without help. For us Africans, this issue is even more complicated. Many of us live between two worlds, the traditional culture of our homeland and the modern culture of where we now live. Sometimes these two worlds collide in painful ways. For instance, a man who grew up in a culture where he was taught that he must control his wife, that she must obey without question, may find it difficult to adjust when he moves to a country where relationships are more equal. He may feel disrespected when his wife expresses her opinion or says something he is not pleased with. That bottled frustration can quickly turn into anger, and anger can lead to abuse, verbal, emotional, and even physical. This cultural conflict doesn't justify abuse, but it helps us understand where some of these attitudes are coming from. And yet, no culture, no tradition, no belief system should ever be used as an excuse to hurt another human being. Love and respect should always be the foundation of any relationship. Abuse is not just harmful to the person being hurt, it poisons the entire family. When it happens in front of children, it leaves deep psychological scars that may last for life. Children who grow up witnessing violence or constant quarrels may become fearful, withdrawn, or even aggressive. Some repeat the same patterns in their own adult lives because that is what they saw as normal. Other children they carry guilt, thinking it was somehow their fault. That's why it's so important for parents and adults to remember that the children are always watching. They learn more from what we do than what we say. If they see us treat each other with cruelty and aggression, we teach them that such behavior is acceptable. But if they see love, patience, forgiveness, and mutual respect, they grow up believing that kindness is strength and peace is possible. We must stop this cycle of barbarism, cruelty, and aggression. We must raise our voices for those who cannot speak for themselves. We must teach our sons that strength is not found in domination and our daughters that love should never hurt. Every person deserves to live in peace, to feel safe in their own home, to love and be loved without fear. Relationships should be sanctuaries of trust, not prisons of pain. It is time we redefine what love truly means. Love is not control. Love is not manipulation. I say love is not silence in the face of abuse. Love protects, love builds, and love heals. To anyone going through abuse today, I want to say this: you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not to blame. There is life beyond the pain you feel. There are people who care, people who listen, who will help you rebuild. Don't wait until your pain becomes unbearable. Don't wait until your spirit is completely broken and crushed. Reach out for help. Speak up. Walk away if you must. Your peace, your sanity, and your safety are worth far more than any relationship that strips you of dignity. Healing takes time, but it is possible. It begins with one brave decision to value yourself enough to leave what destroys you. It continues with forgiveness, not for the abuser, but for yourself. For all the times you stayed, for all the times you doubted your worth. In time, you will rediscover yourself. You will find joy again. You will learn that you are stronger than you ever imagined. And you will be a voice of hope for others who are still trapped in silence. Practical steps to deal with abuse in a relationship. Coming out of an abusive relationship starts with awareness. Like I mentioned earlier, many victims of abuse remain trapped because they convince themselves that things aren't so bad and that somehow love will make it better. But denial only deepens the pains and the chains. At some point, you must take a deep, honest look at the reality. Does this person who claims to love you make you feel small, fearful, or worthless? Do they control your choices, isolate you from others, or use words, manipulation, or force to break your spirit? These are not signs of love, these are signs of abuse. Naming it for what it is helps you break its power. Recognition is the first step in coming out of this stratum. Once you see clearly, you can begin to plan your next step with strength and clarity. And when you do, please remember, none of it is your fault. Abuse is never earned or deserved. It doesn't come because of something you said, did, or failed to do. Those who harm often twist the truth until their lies sound like reason. You made me angry, or if you had just listened, I wouldn't have done it. But there is no excuse, no explanation that justifies hurting another soul. Don't carry the weight of their guilt on your shoulders. That burden was never meant for you. It is a cruel way to keep you small and silent. You are not responsible for another person's actions or cruelty. You deserve peace and respect. Begin gently rebuilding your circle of support. Isolation is one of the most powerful tools an abuser uses. It keeps you silent and afraid, making you believe you have no one to turn to. But connection is healing. Reach out to the people who truly care for you, those whose presence feels safe and kind. Join a support group or find a small online community of others who understand your journey. I remember in my own experience how speaking with a trusted friend during that painful time became a lifeline. Just having someone who listened without judgment helped me breathe again. You will come to see that you are not alone, that even after deep hurt, life can still unfold with beauty and hope. Please never confront an abuser alone. Many people, out of frustration, attempt to do so and end up in danger. If you must communicate, do it in writing or in the presence of someone trustworthy. Your peace and safety are far more important than trying to make someone else see what they refuse to acknowledge. If you ever find yourself in danger, let safety become your highest priority. Abuse often grows worse over time, so please take it seriously. Prepare quietly and wisely. Keep trusted contacts, someone you can reach out to day or night. Gather important documents and keep them where you can reach them quickly. Know where you could go if needed to leave, a friend's home, a shelter, or a sanctuary. Create a simple code to alert someone if you're in danger. And if the abuse turns violent, reach out to the authorities or a helpline. Protecting yourself is not betrayal, it is survival. If you ever been financially dependent on your abuser, take small, steady steps towards independence. Open your own bank account. Save little by little. Learn a new skill or a job. Every bit of financial stability you gain strengthens your emotional freedom. If you have children, remember that they too are affected, even if they are never directly harmed. They absorb the tension, the fear, and the silence. Growing up in such an environment shapes their hearts in painful ways. Show them what courage looks like. Show them that love is not control or fear. Choosing peace for yourself is also choosing life for them. Healing will take time and care, so please seek professional help if you can, a counselor, a therapist, or a support worker. They can guide you through the painful, confusing emotions that follow abuse and help you rebuild your sense of self. If money is tight, many community centers and NGOs offer free or low cost therapy. Your mind and heart deserves healing just as much as your body does. In your quiet moments, draw close to God. Abuse often leaves you feeling distant from Him, ashamed, confused, or unworthy. But God is not the author of your suffering, He is your refuge. Spend time in prayer. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. God's love does not injure you, it calls you into freedom, peace, and restoration. When the time comes, forgive. Forgiveness is not about returning or forgetting, it is about realizing yourself and releasing yourself from the hold of bitterness. You can forgive without reopening the door to pain. Forgiveness heals you and helps you move forward. And finally, when your heart is strong again, use your story to bring hope to others. Listen to someone still struggling in silence. Speak, write, or volunteer. Your pain can become purpose, and your scars can become strength, and your journey can remind another soul that survival is possible. And that freedom, no matter how hard won, is always worth it. Closing thoughts. 1. Am I truly seeing my relationship as it is, or am I excusing behaviors that hurt me in the name of love or culture? 2. In what ways has abuse, either witnessed or experienced, shaped my understanding of love and relationship? 3. How can I take practical steps today, no matter how small, to protect my emotional, physical, and spiritual well being?